Ahmad, I want to bring on somebody that might have something to do with why Florida might be hated a little bit more, probably because of the success that you guys have. We
Now
got
we
your head
pod,
coach
man.
on the program. Urban Meyer joins the show. Ahmad, I didn't tell you that Urban was going to come on while you were here. Him and I were talking about it. I wanted to bring you on because, I mean, what a run you guys had. So, Urban, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, when you told me Ahmad was on, Ahmad is one of my favorite, not only players, but people, and probably the best tackling football player I ever had, and great leader. And he helped me get my last win against Joe Paterno in Penn State with a pick six. And he always reminds me of that. So
It's in our intro.
Now, Coach, I asked Ahmad. I said they kind of zoomed into you on the sideline there. It looked like those eyes might not have been dry on the sideline after that pick six. And I don't know if Ahmad wants to cop to that or not, but it looked like a little emotion on the sideline there.
Yeah, there was, and I can't remember my address. I can't remember my middle name, but I can remember every play in my career, and I certainly remember that one, especially with Ahmad.
I mean, that whole just leading up to that game was awesome. I mean, obviously, we had a lot going on that year, and to be able to finish it like how we wanted to was just it was great. You know, my last game, coach's last game, a lot of those guys out there did it for us and for the guys that won't be there the following year. So I'm always in debt with these guys. I know Coach gets tired of me. I text him like weird stuff, asking him about Ohio State players. Like who was I remember? I think I texted him like how good was Braxton Miller one day, and I just text random stuff. So whatever pops in my head. Like I said before, when I first got on the show, I love talking football. So that Coach helps me with my fix.
I wanted to ask Urban why he's here. So Ahmad gives us the story all the time about how he got number 35. So I want to speak about just numbers in general. I know the number one is one the fans always chimed in about. I know you put heavy emphasis on that. What do you guys both think about the number one and how you gave out numbers, Urban? Like, what was that motivation wise? What was behind it for you?
Well, I love winning, and I love winning with great players. And numbers are very involved in recruiting. I'm not a big number guy, so I could care less. But I'll tell you what, that's one of the most important things with players. Even back then, it is now. I know that as well. Wow, there's a little bit of lightning behind us.
Oh, wow. Thought of something else. Then I remembered you're in Salt Lake City, so.
But numbers are very important. And Ahmad wasn't that highly recruited. He was, quite honestly, just okay when he first got to Florida. So I was either going to give him number 67 or 35. So.
I remember vividly, just coming from high school, man, and able to, we're at Lakeland. We number one team in the country in high school, or however they crack that stuff out. And, the Pouncey twins would wear like Spatic cleats, and like we'll all wear like 2-3 socks and, wristbands on our legs. I remember we got to Florida, and I think the Pounceys asked Coach Meyer if they could get like speed cleats. And he was like, what are you talking about? And visors was another thing. Coach Meyer ain't giving out no visor. You gotta do something before you get a visor.
Ahmad, you and Major have a great relationship, but I graduated high school, St. Thomas and Major. My God, we hated you guys. We hated you guys. 3 straight state championships.
Yeah.
I remember our senior year, Chris Rainey took like the first handoff to the crib, and then he started gator chomping in the end zone. And we were all like booing, and they were like, "All right, never mind. We'll back off for a second."
Yeah.
But what was that like, Coach? What was that like getting the Lakeland 7 in? Those guys who just had that winning mentality. They knew what it took to win at that level and to bring them into the program.
Yeah, I was blown away with the talent level of the state of Florida. And then back in my day, it was St. Thomas Aquinas, Lakeland every year for the championship. And we would have took the whole team, and we basically did the one year at at the Lakeland Gator Knots, we used to call them. Bill Castle, one of my dear friends, I would go every year, spend a lot of time with his program. He ran it a lot like we did. He's very tough, very demanding, expected excellence, on and off the field, and he was great. And I'll tell you what, Rainey was the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't remember who was second, but once we flipped those Pouncies.
I think I was. Let me tell you how it really went. So first of all, Randy committed to Florida.
Coach wants to be like, Ahmad, you were the player to be named later. You were not second.
All right. First of all, Randy committed to Florida, and I found out later, Coach didn't even offer him yet. So he committed without even freaking scholarship. So let's just start there. All right. Randy was already fixed on Florida. He was like, hey, regardless of whoever offers me, whenever I get the Florida offer, I'm going to Florida. So Randy committed without a scholarship offer.
I remember that now. I remember when he committed, I walked in the staff room and said, who is this guy? Is he any good? And Charlie Strong was the Lakeland recruiter, I believe. And
mm-hmm.
It was Stan Drayton was our running back coach.
Yeah.
And Chris Rainey was about 110 pounds. So my God, he could run. And so we ended up taking him, and we love Chris Rainey.
Yeah, Rainey's awesome.
And I don't know if you remember Major's recruitment at all, but I had a class in Major his senior year. He was getting called out of class all the time. Coaches coming to talk to him. And one time he comes back to class, and we're like, who was it? He goes, Charlie Weiss. He was at Notre Dame at the time. And we were like, man, how'd that go? He goes, I told him he's down here wasting his time. I'm going to Florida. And I was like, does Florida know? He goes, no. So I don't even know if you know that Major was in the bag before he went public.
Funny story. So when Major committed, I was at Coach's house.
Do you remember what happened? He went up to the game of Ohio State against the Wolverines, one of the most legendary number 1 versus number 2.
Mm-hmm.
He was there. The Buckeyes win. They rushed the field. And I thought we had him too. And Chris Carter, who was a Buckeye but a dear friend. I coached Chris, actually. How many people know this? I actually coached Chris Carter. I was a GA, but I coached him at Ohio State. We were very close. And he helped me a lot in recruiting. And when Major left Ohio State, Major told me too, he said, Coach, I got a problem here. I don't know what to do. I was like, uh-oh. And we went to work on him, recruited him really, really hard. But he was flipped there for a minute, and we got him back to be a Gator.
Coach, how many people did you call in that national championship tunnel before the game? Because I talked to Deontay Thompson. I know a few other guys that told me they got a call from you as they were watching the national championship. I know you always recruiting, but how many guys you called in the tunnel before y'all ran out?
Recruiting became a complete obsession with me down there. And I hired a guy named Mark Pantoni, who is with Ohio State now. I brought him with me, and he's the very best in the business. And I would always push our coaches and myself. I don't want to make that phone call and say, hey, how'd you play last week? How's your girlfriend? How's your grades? Okay, I'll call you next week. You just wasted everyone's time. That's not a phone call. You got to make an impact. Any opportunity you can to talk to a great player, and players remember that. And so, it's a pain in the ass. And the last thing I want to do before we're taking the field against the Oklahoma Sooners is someone stick a phone in my ear. But I told our recruiting staff, I said, nothing's off limits. Whatever, I'll do it. If you think now, and I got pissed sometimes. I said, make sure this makes an impact. And that's a pretty good impact. 5 minutes before that ball is about to hit the foot, to get a phone call from the field or whatever, in the locker room, wherever we were.
Hey, Silk, I wasn't good enough to get that call, man. I wasn't on that call list, so I can't tell you how that feels.
He paid you on your
Ahmad got an email in July.
Yeah, I got a piece of paper and said, hey, congratulations.
I'll tell you what, though, that interception you made against Sam Bradford, that proved you're good enough.
All right, there we go.
Absolutely.
Since we have you both on the show, you guys both had the unique opportunity to be on Swamp Kings. Talk to us a little bit about that process, because I know there was some talk early on, and then I know Urban, you and Tim signed off maybe a little bit later on into production, as things were getting started. What was that experience and process like for you guys? And was the show what you expected it would be after it was produced? Or talk to us just a little bit about that whole Swamp Kings documentary.
Yeah, they came to me and I said no. They went to Tim and said no. And I thought it was going to be one of those, those hit job, saying our players are bad guys and we had a bunch of thugs and you start after a while, you don't care when you're working. And when you stop and you kind of reflect, so you talk about getting pissed off. I start hearing stuff going, that's not true. That's not true. Were we perfect team? No. Did we have guys that we, do stuff they weren't supposed to? Was there also some unfair treatment? Of course there was. All the above. And so I told Netflix, I said, you might not want me on this because I'm not working, and I will blow this thing up if you start saying untruths. And she was great. And the whole production team said, Coach, I think at first they wanted us to make it into something like that. We found out they started interviewing our players, and I asked them for the interview sheet. I said, I want to know who you talked to. And I saw the list of players, and they're not the guys that were disgruntled. They're not the guys that maybe were kicked off the team. They're not the guys that didn't play, because that you're always going to have that. But it was Brandon Seiler, it was Dallas Baker, it was, the Major Wright, Joe Hayden, Ahmad Black, some of these great players. And I started thinking about it. I said, heck yeah, I want to do this. We had the opportunity to play with one of the greatest players. I think, I'm biased, the greatest player of all time, Tim Tebow. You had arguably one of the greatest football teams in college football history. Again, I'm biased, but I've been around the game a little bit. That 2008 team, as good as team as there's ever been on the football field. And I said, hell yeah, we'll do this. And I thought they did a good job.
How it kind of started at first was kind of weird because, people always wanted to do documentaries and this and that and the third. Well, they wrote us on Facebook, which is super weird. So like, it was like one of those like filtered messages where like
that's how I ask people to come on the show, man.
It was like super weird. And then when you click on the page, it had like one or two pictures, and it was like they were from the UK. And I'm like, nah. Well, then I guess a couple guys had got it. And we start texting each other like, hey, is this something that we might want to do and whatnot? A lot of people don't know, but I know we would speak with Coach for like a month and a half or so. Every Thursday we would get on a Zoom call, all the players. And I think we had like maybe Timmy's attorneys on one time when we originally spoke with the Netflix people or the production company, just to, like Coach said, to make sure it's told the right way and not putting us in a bad light. And everything went well. I mean, all the guys that everyone wanted to see on there were on these meetings. Now, over time, maybe a guy or two would drop out for various reasons. We don't know. But ultimately, I think they did a great job of just basically showing what it took to be a Gator at that time and what it took to be great. Like Coach said, arguably one of the best teams to ever play the game. And people want to know how did you train? What did you do? How did you prepare for a game? What was it like on the sideline? What was it like off the field? And they got all of that in one documentary.
Coach, Brandon Seiler kind of stole the show, episode 1, with his personality, his story about when you thought, hey, Brandon's not doing what he needs to do off the field. Let me call his parents in. And his retelling of that story, I want to hear your perspective of what you thought it was going to be. Hey, I'm getting his parents into my office. We're going to set this kid straight, to how the meeting went down in your view.
Well, my coaching career, I coached at Notre Dame, then I went to Bowling Green, Utah, then Florida, and I was educated on life in Gainesville, man. I mean, it was something like I'd never experienced. And Gainesville can be, that downtown area, and I was kind of inundated with just stuff, when players were struggling academically, and, here's my leader. He was without the doubt the leader. He's the alpha male of that team. And we became pretty close early on, but he was living a life that was not conducive that what I wanted our team to be. Nothing horrible, but just college life. And so I would chew him out. I'd get after him and rip his ass. And then finally, and it's worked many times over the years, I said, enough, enough. I'm getting your parents in here. We're going to get this shit straight, because you could be an NFL high draft pick if we just take care of yourself, man. And sure enough, his mom and dad, I set the meeting, and he told it beautifully. They came in, and I was ready to dive into the whole thing. And I mean, I got knocked back. His mom said, she called me Myers, my Myers. hey, Myers, we came here to win a national championship and my son be a first-round draft pick. And she started pointing at me. And if you can't do that, I know you came from Utah, but this is Florida. And I mean, she's ripping my ass. And it goes on and on and on. You can tell they had a couple pops or something before they came in. And that was true. I remember I grabbed Brandon, I gave him a big hug and said, hey, keep doing what you're doing, bro. I got you. And let's try to keep this thing on the tracks.
It's a story that a lot of people don't know either. So when me and the Lakeland guys were getting recruited, obviously Rainey had an older brother, Rod Smart. So Rod played with the Carolina Panthers. When Rod would leave Lakeland to go back to Carolina, he would leave a car here for Rainey. So I just told my mom this like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, Mom, when you used to let me go with Chris Rainey, we would be in Orlando, and I would tell you I was down the road. Not true. I was in Orlando. So, but me and Rainey would always go to Gainesville. And one time we went up there. We were still in high school, and Rainey, just has a way with getting to people. He knew all the players already at Florida, and we end up somehow picking up Brandon Seiler. I don't know how we picked up Brandon Seiler in the car. I let Brandon sit in the front seat because I didn't want no issues.
I'm on no problem, sir. I'm in the back seat.
No problem. So I ended up sitting in the back, and I remember distinctly, Coach, I almost didn't come to Florida, by the way. I wasn't going to college. Brandon Seiler had on a tank top, and the size of his shoulders was something I'd never seen in my life. And I'm like, is this what college football players look like? I'm not playing. After this, you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, he got in the passenger seat, and he just, everything, just his arms, and I'm like, fuck. Like Coach says, I mean, he's the ultimate, alpha dog. You know what I mean?
Urban, what do you? Mickey Marotti was negatively recruiting you by getting your guys to lift weights without you even knowing. Just negative recruiting by your own strength coach.
Man, that whole team was just loaded with just like different type of guys, just like freak athletes, bro. Like I remember as a fan back then, as the message board were released, the Percy Harvin pictures, the Cornelius Ingrams, the Omarius Hines, like all those guys were just freaks, like physically. And you don't see that no more, but that was the era, like the 40 times that they would post, the workouts that they would post. Like we were all fiends for that stuff, fans wise, but it was just a different era of competitiveness. Like it was just on a different level at UF at that time. We're trying to get back there, but what's your overall feel for the team right now, if y'all don't mind me asking?
I think Ahmad probably knows more than I do. I'm really pulling for him. I know Coach Napier a little bit. Charlie Strong went to a spring practice and called me from the practice. They have Graham Mertz. I actually recruited Graham Mertz out of St. Louis. I think it was St. Louis or Kansas City. I really admire him as a player and a person. I think he's going to be great. The schedule's real, but if I was the coach, I'd probably, I wouldn't even talk about it. We in 2006 we had the hardest schedule in college football, and I remember as a coach, you internalized it because you thought, my gosh, but once you get going, it's day to day, week to week, and try to keep your players healthy and motivated. And, so I'm pulling for him. I don't know enough about him because we spend most, Fox, Big Noon, we spend most of our time in the Big 10 and Big 12. But because it's the Gators, I certainly do follow them, and I'm pulling for them.
You busy next year, just in case? What do you rank yourself? What do you rank yourself all time, man? You in this era, you definitely, it was you and Nick Saban kind of I think you guys evolved the game, especially in recruiting, but it was pretty much you and Saban going back and forth with runs of Florida, Ohio State, and he was at Bama the entire time. But what do you rank yourself?
Corey, I don't, I'm not going to go there. Shelly's over here. She can come. She'll give me that.
Let's get Shelly. Let's get Shelly. Yeah, we'll take her.
Because mine is probably going to be the same as Shelly. So
now we're talking to the boss.
Question, please.
Talking to the boss.
We're definitely the GOAT show now. We got Shelly on, man. This is crazy.
We can only get the first another hour at this point, right?
I'm not biased at all either. So just go ahead and shoot it out.
What would you rank Urban all time?
Ooh. Oh, is this gonna get me in trouble?
No.
Do I get dinner tonight? I would have to say third.
Okay. Who you
I'm
got
gonna
first
say
and second?
Woody. I'm gonna say Woody,
Okay.
Nick Saban, and Urban. Steve
like it.
Spurrier.
I like it.
That's a good order.
There you have it.
Do I get dinner?
You're good.
Okay.
All right, listen,
You get to
Go
cook it.
Gators!
Go Gators.
listen, I don't know too much about Woody. I know a little bit. I was able to beat Nick Saban on coach team. I'm going coach number one. I don't. Maybe I'm biased. I don't know.
And here's one when Dan told us you were going to be on. I know that you don't need to politic for this, but I think it's past due to have your name in the Ring of Honor and have it up there in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium for what you did for Florida and your accomplishments at Florida. I think we are overdue for that honor, Coach.
100%.
Nick, I appreciate it, and I love the Gators, and I appreciate you guys having me on. And I told you before, we'll do it. I think last year I couldn't do it, but anytime.
Absolutely. Well,
And
Urban,
Nick,
we appreciate.
Hold
Oh,
on, I got one more story. So coach probably don't remember this, but I do.
He's trying to leave the mod, trying to throw you under the bus, Coach.
It didn't matter anyway. So Nick, you went to St. Thomas. I remember 08, the year we won the national championship. St. Thomas played Lakeland in the state championship. Coach has no idea, right? And it was in Orlando. It was in Orlando. Coach has no idea that all of us are kind of planning to go to it, but we have practice first, right? So we already know, like, we got it down to a science of what time we need to get out of practice, go get changed, get in the car, get to Orlando, and back. You know, because we probably have practice the next day or something. We get to like period 9, 10, and this shit's going like in our mind, this shit's smooth. We almost there. Like, fuck, we ready to hop on the road. Coach, you started fucking practice over from the beginning. I was like, wait, no. And we end up starting practice over. We hop in the car and get on the road late, and it was already like that's the year that they had both Bosa brothers were on St. Thomas. You had Chris Carter's son. You had James White played in the NFL. Giovanni Bernard played in the NFL.
Chris was the OC.
Yeah, they just smoked Lakeland that year. So, I guess in reality it didn't really matter. But Coach, I just wanted to let you know that you don't have to start practice over that day.
I saw a quote in a book one day that they had from me that said, I used to tell the team, we're going to have 2 really good hours of practice today. 2 really good hours. It might take us 4 hours, but we're going to get 2 good hours.
Pat Dooley and Robbie Andrew. I didn't cover Florida when you were there, Coach, but Pat Dooley and Robbie Andrew speak, I guess we'll call it fondly, of how long practices would go when they had media after practice.
mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
Hey, one last story for you. So, and I think it was Coach Belichick. This is how good those guys were in 08 and 09. I can't remember if it was spring 08 or 09, but I tell people this story that we were if you had to say what was the drill that symbolized the Florida Gators was inside run.
Oh, God.
And you had the Pouncies and you had, Carlos Dunlap and Spikes and we'd bring the safeties down with Ahmad. And it was
Violence.
It was Vietnam, man. It was hardcore. And that was our signature. People say you're spread offense. We were a spread offense that tried to hit you in the face as hard as possible. That's what we were. And the defense with Charlie Strong, Greg Madison, and that whole crew, we're going to hit you right back. And we had those alpha personalities. And every period, probably around period 7, period 8, everybody knew it was coming. We'd start blowing those horns, and I'd lose my mind. Everybody started going crazy. And we had Adazio and Madison and, oh, my gosh, Charlie Strong screaming at each other. The players start whooping at each other.
Yeah.
And I'm standing on the side. I want to say it was Coach Belichick. And we start going. And the whole idea is it's not tackle. You got to stay up. And that first play, you had Tebow woofing at Spice going after him. You had the Pouncey twins and going after Rainey. And, and Ahmad jumping all, everybody's going crazy. That first play was like something I've never seen. The amount of violent contact that took place, there's everybody's on the ground. It was boom. And I said, stay up. I'm going to warn you last time, stay up. And Belichick looks at me and says, I've never seen anything like that. And we second snap again, and it was even more violent. I blew the whistle. I said, "You're done. Go, get out. Go individual." Because
I
that's
love
how
it, man.
that's the number one quality of every great player, every great coach, and every great team is competitive spirit. And the one thing about 08 will forever be etched in my mind and heart. That was the most competitive freaking group you ever been around. They were not going to lose. So I'll leave you with that.
Awesome. Well, Urban, we appreciate you coming on the show and enjoy the rest of your vacation. And buy Shelly a nice dinner.
Bye.
I was